Imagine this. You're living a life of luxury, surrounded by opulence, power, and influence. You have everything you could ever want except for one thing: the ability to see. Now, picture someone entering your world, someone who seems perfect, someone who fills the void you've been struggling with for years. But what if that person isn't who they claim to be? What if their entire identity is a lie, carefully crafted to deceive you? And what if, despite your blindness, you're the only one who can see through the facade? This is the story of a blind billionaire who trusted the wrong person, only to uncover a truth so shocking it will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, trust, and betrayal. If you've ever wondered how far someone would go to manipulate another person, or how someone without sight could see what others couldn't, then you're in the right place. By the end of this video, you'll get the answers you've been searching for, answers that will keep you on the edge of your seat, desperate to know what happens next. Let's take a moment to connect, because this isn't just a story, it's an experience. And I want you to feel every twist, every turn, and every emotion as if you were right there in the room with these characters. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt like something was off, but you couldn't quite put your finger on it? That gut feeling, that instinct that something isn't right, it's powerful, isn't it? Now, imagine having that feeling, but being told you're wrong because, after all, you can't see what everyone else can. That's the world our billionaire lives in. A world where trust is fragile, and appearances can be dangerously deceiving. This story is about more than just a billionaire and an imposter. It's about the human psyche, the lengths people will go to for love, power, and revenge, and the incredible strength it takes to uncover the truth when everyone else is blind to it. Let me introduce you to the key players in this gripping tale. First, there's Alexander Grant, the blind billionaire. A self-made man who lost his sight in a tragic accident. Alexander is a genius in the world of finance, known for his sharp mind and unwavering determination. Despite his disability, he's built an empire that most people could only dream of. But his success has come at a cost. Lonely and isolated, Alexander yearns for genuine connection, someone who sees him for who he truly is, not just for his wealth. Enter Sophia Loren, a beautiful, enigmatic woman who seems to be the answer to his prayers. Sophia is charming, intelligent, and everything Alexander has ever wanted in a partner. But there's something about her that doesn't quite add up. Something that only Alexander, with his heightened senses and intuition, can sense. Then there's Daniel Carter, Alexander's loyal assistant and confidant. Daniel has been by Alexander's side for years, helping him navigate the challenges of his disability and the cutthroat world of high finance. But even Daniel has secrets, and his loyalty is about to be tested in ways he never imagined. And finally, there's the mysterious figure lurking in the shadows, pulling the strings behind the scenes. This person's identity is shrouded in mystery, but their influence is undeniable. They're the mastermind behind the deception, the one who set this entire scheme into motion. But why? What do they stand to gain from Alexander's downfall? And how far will they go to ensure their plan succeeds? As the story unfolds, you'll be drawn into a web of lies, manipulation, and intrigue. You'll witness the lengths people will go to for love, power, and revenge. You'll see how trust can be both a strength and a weakness, and how the truth can be both liberating and devastating. But most importantly, you'll discover how someone who can't see can still have the clearest vision of all. This is a story that will challenge your perceptions, keep you guessing until the very end, and leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the people in your life. Now I know what you're thinking. How does a blind man uncover a truth that everyone else is blind to? How does he see what others can't? That's the mystery we're about to unravel. But here's the thing, this isn't just Alexander's story. It's your story too. Because, in a way, we're all blind to something. We all have moments where we can't see the truth, even when it's right in front of us. And that's what makes this story so compelling. It's not just about a billionaire and an imposter, it's about us. It's about the masks we wear, the lies we tell, and the truths we're afraid to face. It's about the power of intuition, the strength of the human spirit, and the courage it takes to confront the unknown. So, are you ready to dive into this world of secrets, lies, and shocking revelations? Are you ready to uncover the truth alongside Alexander, to feel the tension, the suspense, and the heart-pounding moments that will keep you glued to your screen? If the answer is yes, then you're in for a wild ride. But be warned, once you start watching, you won't be able to stop. Because this isn't just a story. It's an experience. And by the time it's over, you'll never look at trust, love, or betrayal the same way again. But before we go any further, let me ask you this. What would you do if you discovered that the person you trusted most was living a lie? How far would you go to uncover the truth? And what would you do if that truth was more shocking than you could ever imagine? These are the questions that will haunt you as we delve deeper into this tale of deception and discovery. And trust me, by the time we reach the end, you'll have the answers that will leave you breathless, stunned, and desperate for more. So, sit back, relax, and get ready to embark on a journey that will challenge everything you thought you knew. Because in this story, nothing is as it seems, and the truth is always just out of reach. But don't worry, you're about to get the answers you've been searching for. And trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The blind billionaire is about to uncover the truth, and when he does, everything will change. But until then, the question remains. Who is Sophia Loren, and what is she hiding? The answer is closer than you think, but you'll have to keep watching to find out. Alexander Grant's life was a paradox, a man who couldn't see yet saw more than most. His blindness, a result of a tragic accident years ago, had sharpened his other senses to an almost supernatural degree. He could hear the faintest tremor in a voice, sense the slightest shift in someone's posture, and detect the subtlest change in the air around him. These abilities had served him well in the cutthroat world of high finance, where trust was a luxury few could afford. But in his personal life, Alexander's heightened senses had become both a gift and a curse. He could sense when someone was lying, but he couldn't always see the truth behind the lie. And that's where Sophia Loren came in. From the moment they met, Alexander was captivated. She was everything he had ever wanted: intelligent, compassionate, and seemingly genuine. But there was something about her that didn't sit right with him. Something he couldn't quite put his finger on. It was a feeling, a whisper in the back of his mind, that told him Sophia wasn't who she claimed to be. But how could he prove it? How could he uncover the truth when everyone around him insisted that Sophia was perfect? Sophia's arrival in Alexander's life had been nothing short of serendipitous. They had met at a charity gala, an event Alexander rarely attended but had been persuaded to go to by Daniel, his ever-loyal assistant. Sophia had been the keynote speaker, delivering a moving speech about her work with underprivileged children. Her voice had been soft yet commanding, her words filled with passion and conviction. Alexander had been drawn to her immediately, not just because of her beauty, but because of the sincerity he thought he heard in her voice. They had talked for hours that night, and by the end of the evening, Alexander felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. Hope that he could finally find someone who saw him for who he truly was, not just for his wealth or his disability. But as the weeks turned into months, that hope began to waver. Little things started to bother him: the way Sophia would sometimes hesitate before answering a question, the way she would deflect when he asked about her past, the way she seemed to know just a little too much about his business dealings. It was as if she had studied him, learned everything about him before they had even met. And then there were the phone calls late at night, always in hushed tones, always ending abruptly when he entered the room. Alexander's instincts told him something was wrong, but every time he tried to confront Sophia, she would charm her way out of it, leaving him feeling foolish and paranoid. Meanwhile, Daniel Carter was growing increasingly uneasy. He had been Alexander's right-hand man for over a decade, and in that time, he had seen his fair share of gold diggers and opportunists. But Sophia was different. She was too perfect, too calculated. Daniel had done a background check on her, of course, but everything had come back clean. Too clean. It was as if Sophia Loren had sprung into existence fully formed, with no past, no history, no connections. And that's what worried Daniel the most. He had tried to voice his concerns to Alexander, but the billionaire had brushed him off, insisting that Sophia was different, that she was the one person he could trust. But Daniel wasn't so sure. He had seen the way Sophia looked at Alexander when she thought no one was watching, a look that was less about love and more about calculation. And then there were the emails. Daniel had stumbled upon them. By accident, encrypted messages sent from an unknown sender to Sophia's private account. He hadn't been able to decipher the content, but the mere existence of the emails was enough to raise his suspicions. Who was Sophia really communicating with? And what were they planning? As the days passed, the tension in Alexander's penthouse grew thicker. Sophia's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would disappear for hours at a time, only to return with vague explanations about running errands or meeting friends. Alexander's instinct screamed at him to confront her, but every time he tried, she would disarm him with a smile or a touch, leaving him more confused than ever. And then there were the dreams, vivid, unsettling dreams that left him waking up in a cold sweat. In these dreams, he would see Sophia standing over him, her face twisted in a mask of rage, whispering words he couldn't quite make out. But the most disturbing part was that in these dreams, he could see. He could see her face, her eyes, the hatred burning in them. And when he woke up, the image would linger, haunting him throughout the day. Was it just his subconscious playing tricks on him, or was it a warning? A glimpse of the truth that his waking mind couldn't comprehend? Unbeknownst to Alexander, Sophia was indeed hiding something, a secret so dark, so dangerous that it could destroy everything he had built. She wasn't who she claimed to be, that much was certain. But her motives were far more complex than simple greed or ambition. Sophia had a score to settle, a vendetta that went back years, to a time when Alexander's empire was still in its infancy. She had been someone else then, living a life far removed from the glamorous world she now inhabited. But fate, or perhaps something more sinister, had brought her back into Alexander's orbit, and she was determined to make him pay for the sins of his past. But revenge wasn't her only goal. There was something else, something even more insidious, that she was after. And as the pieces of her plan began to fall into place, it became clear that Alexander wasn't the only one in danger. Everyone around him, Daniel, his business partners, even his closest friends, were all pawns in a game they didn't even know they were playing. And then there was the mysterious figure in the shadows, the one pulling the strings behind the scenes. This person's identity was a mystery, but their influence was undeniable. They had been watching Alexander for years, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And Sophia was their weapon, their Trojan horse, sent to infiltrate Alexander's life and bring him to his knees. But even they hadn't anticipated the depth of Alexander's intuition, his ability to sense danger even when he couldn't see it. And as the noose began to tighten, it became clear that this was more than just a game of cat and mouse. It was a battle of wits, a test of wills, and the stakes were higher than anyone could have imagined. As the story unfolds, the lines between friend the tension in Alexander's penthouse had reached a boiling point, a pressure cooker of secrets and lies ready to explode at any moment. Sophia's behavior had become increasingly unpredictable, her once charming demeanor now laced with an undercurrent of desperation. She would often retreat to the balcony, staring out at the city skyline as if searching for answers or perhaps an escape. Alexander, though blind, could feel the shift in the air, the way the energy in the room seemed to crackle with unease. He had always trusted his instincts, but now they were screaming at him louder than ever. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and he was determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. But what he didn't know was that the truth was far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. One night, as Alexander lay in bed, the faint sound of footsteps outside his door pulled him from his restless sleep. He froze, his heightened senses on high alert. The footsteps were soft, deliberate, as if someone was trying not to be heard. He held his breath, listening intently as the sound grew closer. Then the door creaked open, and a cold draft swept into the room. Alexander's heart pounded in his chest as he strained to hear any movement. But there was nothing, only silence. For a moment, he wondered if he had imagined it, if his paranoia had finally gotten the best of him. But then he smelled it, a faint trace of perfume, one he recognized instantly. It was Sophia's. She was in the room with him, standing just a few feet away. What was she doing there in the middle of the night? And why was she so quiet? Alexander's mind raced as he tried to piece together what was happening. Was she there to hurt him? To confess something? Or was it something else entirely? Before he could decide what to do, the sound of footsteps retreated and the door clicked shut. Alexander was left alone in the darkness, his mind swirling with questions and fear. The next morning, Alexander confronted Sophia about the incident, his voice calm but firm. She denied everything, her tone laced with a mixture of confusion and indignation. "I was asleep all night," she insisted, her voice trembling slightly. "You must have been dreaming." But Alexander wasn't convinced. He had heard her, smelled her, felt her presence in the room. And yet, there was no proof, no way to confirm what had really happened. It was as if Sophia had anticipated his every move, covering her tracks with the precision of a master manipulator. Frustrated and increasingly suspicious, Alexander turned to Daniel for help. But even Daniel seemed off, his usual confidence replaced by a nervous energy that Alexander couldn't quite place. When Alexander pressed him about Sophia, Daniel hesitated, his words carefully measured. "I don't trust her," he admitted finally. "But I can't prove anything." Not yet. It was the first time Daniel had openly acknowledged his doubts, and it only deepened Alexander's unease. If even Daniel, his most trusted ally, was unsure, then who could he trust? Meanwhile, Sophia was unraveling, her carefully constructed facade beginning to crack under the weight of her secrets. She had come into Alexander's life with a mission, a plan so meticulously crafted that failure had never been an option. But now, as the walls closed in around her, she found herself questioning everything. The late-night phone calls, the encrypted emails, the whispered conversations with her mysterious handler, it was all becoming too much. She had been told that Alexander was a monster, a man who deserved everything that was coming to him. But the more time she spent with him, the more she began to doubt that narrative. He was kind, generous, and fiercely loyal to those he cared about. Was it possible that she had been lied to? That the man she was supposed to destroy was nothing like the villain she had been led to believe? The thought terrified her, not just because it threatened her mission, but because it forced her to confront the darkness within herself. Who was she really? A pawn in someone else's game? Or something far worse? As the days passed, the stakes grew higher, the web of deception more tangled. Alexander began to dig deeper into Sophia's past, using every resource at his disposal to uncover the truth. What he found was both shocking and heartbreaking. Sophia's real name was Emily Carter, a woman with a tragic past tied to Alexander's rise to power. Years ago, Alexander's company had been involved in a scandal that had ruined countless lives, including Emily's family. She had been just a teenager at the time, forced to watch as her father lost everything and took his own life. The pain of that loss had festered over the years, turning into a burning desire for revenge. And now, she had finally found her way into Alexander's life, determined to make him pay for the sins of his past. But what Alexander didn't know was that Emily wasn't working alone. She was part of a larger scheme, orchestrated by someone with a personal vendetta against him, someone who had been waiting in the shadows for years, biding their time. The revelation hit Alexander like a punch to the gut. He had always known that his success had come at a cost, but he had never imagined the extent of the damage he had caused. And now, the past had come back to haunt him in the most personal way possible. But even as he grappled with the weight of his guilt, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Why had Emily waited so long to seek revenge? And who was the mysterious figure pulling the strings behind the scenes? The answers to those questions were out there, hidden in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered. But time was running out, and the closer Alexander got to the truth, the more dangerous the game became. And then, Just when it seemed like things couldn't get any more complicated, an unexpected twist changed everything. Daniel, Alexander's loyal assistant, was revealed to be working with Emily. The man Alexander had trusted more than anyone had been feeding information to his enemies, playing both sides in a dangerous game of deception. The betrayal cut deeper than anything Alexander had ever experienced, leaving him reeling and unsure of who to trust. But even as he struggled to process the revelation, a new piece of the puzzle emerged: a name, whispered in the darkest corners of the conspiracy. A name that sent a chill down Alexander's spine. It was someone from his past, someone he had thought was long gone. Someone who had every reason to want him destroyed. As the story hurtles toward its climax, the tension reaches a fever pitch. Alexander is forced to confront not just the enemies around him, but the demons within himself. Emily, torn between her desire for revenge and the growing realization that she may have been wrong about Alexander, must decide where her loyalties truly lie. And Daniel, caught in a web of his own making, must face the consequences of his betrayal. But the biggest threat of all remains hidden, a shadowy figure whose motives are as mysterious as they are deadly. The stage is set for a showdown that will change everything, but the outcome is anything but certain. Will Alexander uncover the truth in time to save himself and those he cares about? Or will the past finally catch up to him, destroying everything he has worked so hard to build? The answers are closer than ever, but the cost of uncovering them may be more than anyone is willing to pay. Stay tuned, because the blind billionaire's journey is far from over, and the truth is more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The final act of Alexander's story began with a confrontation that would change everything. Armed with the knowledge of Emily's true identity and Daniel's betrayal, Alexander knew he had to act fast. But he also knew that brute force wouldn't be enough. This was a game of wits, and if he wanted to win, he would have to outmaneuver his enemies at every turn. He reached out to the one person he thought he could still trust, a private investigator named Claire, a woman with a reputation for uncovering the truth no matter how deeply it was buried. Together, they began to piece together the final fragments of the puzzle, uncovering a conspiracy that went far beyond Emily and Daniel. At the center of it all was a name that sent shivers down Alexander's spine: Victor Langston, a former business partner Alexander had thought was dead. Victor had been presumed killed in a plane crash years ago, but the truth was far more sinister. He had faked his death to escape the fallout of a failed business deal, one that had left him bankrupt and humiliated. And now, he was back, determined to destroy Alexander and everything he had built. Victor's plan was as brilliant as it was cruel. He had orchestrated every detail, from Emily's infiltration into Alexander's life to Daniel's betrayal, all to bring Alexander to his knees. But Victor hadn't counted on one thing: Alexander's resilience. Despite the odds stacked against him, Alexander refused to give up. He knew that the only way to defeat Victor was to confront him directly, to expose his lies and manipulations for the world to see. With Claire's help, Alexander arranged a meeting with Victor, a high-stakes showdown that would determine the fate of everyone involved. The meeting took place in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, a place where secrets could be buried and forgotten. As Alexander stepped into the dimly lit space, he could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. This was it, the final battle, the moment of truth. Victor was waiting for him, a smug smile on his face as he leaned casually against a rusted metal beam. "I knew you'd come," he said, his voice dripping with condescension. "You always were too proud to walk away." Alexander didn't respond, his mind focused on the task at hand. He had come prepared, armed with evidence of Victor's crimes: emails, financial records, and recordings of his conversations with Emily and Daniel. But Victor wasn't fazed. He had anticipated Alexander's moves, and he had a few surprises of his own. As the two men faced off, the tension in the room was palpable, a silent battle of wills that would determine the outcome of their war. But just as it seemed like Victor had the upper hand, an unexpected twist changed everything. Emily, who had been hiding in the shadows, stepped forward, her face a mask of determination. "It's over, Victor," she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. I'm not going to let you destroy him. Not anymore. Victor laughed, a cold, cruel sound that echoed through the warehouse. You think you can stop me? He sneered. You're just a pawn, Emily. Always have been, always will be. But Emily wasn't backing down. She had come to a realization during her time with Alexander, a realization that revenge wasn't the answer. The pain of her past would never go away, but destroying Alexander wouldn't heal her wounds. It would only create more pain, more suffering. And she was done being a pawn in someone else's game. What happened next was a blur. Emily revealed that she had been secretly recording Victor's conversations, gathering evidence of his crimes. She handed the recordings to Alexander, who played them on a portable speaker for everyone to hear. Victor's smug expression faded as the truth came to light, his carefully constructed facade crumbling before his eyes. But he wasn't going down without a fight. In a desperate attempt to escape, he lunged at Alexander, only to be intercepted by Daniel, who had been hiding in the shadows. The two men struggled, their fight a chaotic mess of fists and curses. In the end, it was Claire who stepped in, using her training to subdue Victor and bring the confrontation to an end. As the police arrived to take Victor away, Alexander stood amidst the wreckage of the warehouse, his mind reeling from everything that had happened. He had won, but the victory felt hollow. The cost had been too high, trust shattered, relationships broken, and lives forever changed. Emily approached him, her eyes filled with regret. I'm sorry, she said softly. For everything. Alexander nodded, his heart heavy with the weight of their shared history. So am I, he replied. But it's not too late to start over, to make things right. Emily smiled, a small, tentative smile that hinted at the possibility of redemption. Maybe, she said. But first, I need to figure out who I am. Who I really am. The story ends with Alexander standing on the balcony of his penthouse, the city skyline stretching out before him. He couldn't see it, but he could feel it, the pulse of the city, the rhythm of life moving forward. He had been through hell, but he had come out the other side stronger, wiser, and more determined than ever. The blind billionaire had uncovered the truth, and in doing so, he had found something even more valuable, a sense of purpose. He knew that the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but he was ready to face it, one step at a time. And as the camera pans out, showing the vast expanse of the city, one thing becomes clear: this is not just a story about betrayal and revenge. It's a story about resilience, redemption, and the power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of challenges. So, what's your takeaway from this incredible journey? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more gripping stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and never stop seeking the truth.